Knee Deep in the Dead holds a special place in many Doom players' minds, as it was the first official episode released for people to play. When people talk about the Ultimate Doom and how it holds up, usually Knee Deep in the Dead gets high praise, placing highly among gamers' opinions. I wanted to look back at the 9 levels that make up Knee Deep in the Dead and talk about where each level does well and where I feel they fall. This isn't an overly critical analysis, although I am tempted to do that in the future. This is just my personal opinion on where each level succeeds and fails, and how that helps to maintain the strong reputation that Knee Deep in the Dead holds all these years later. Just to point out, these are my general opinions. They're not official and shouldn't be taken super seriously. Everyone has their own takes, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on the levels in Knee Deep in the Dead, about which are the best, which are the worst, and just your general thoughts in the comments. Let me hear it in the comments. But without further ado, let's get on to the levels. Hangar is an incredibly strong opening level that sets a high bar for anyone entering Doom for the first time. The opening room showcases how big a step up from Wolfenstein Doom is, with multiple textures, lighting, floor sprites and varied heights. Take a peek to the right and you'll see a courtyard below with an armor bonus teasing you to explore the level and figure out how to make it outside. You'll also see areas in the level you'll be exploring very soon, giving you a tease of what's to come. The level keeps things simple and is a great way to teach gamers the basics of Doom, from mowing down human enemies to catching sight of your first imp. Thanks to the horseshoe design, it's near impossible to get lost, meaning this doubles up as a great multiplayer map and a great single player experience at the same time. There's enough secrets to satisfy the curious. Even on harder difficulty, things are just balanced enough to keep it really fun. This is an iconic level, and there's a reason for that. It's brilliant. Nuclear Plant kicks things up a notch by throwing in a whole bunch of new goodies and traps to catch the player out. Here you'll find a very wide level that shows off Doom's open approach to level design. For the adventurous, there's even an outdoor area that hides shotgunners on higher difficulties. But for the curious, finding the secret switch that lets you outside grants you a megasphere and chain gun. Nice indeed. The level also introduces the concept of keycards. There's only one here, but it provides a nice tutorial and forces players to learn how this mechanic works. Speaking of exploring, there's a whole maze stuffed with ammo and a chainsaw that's completely optional. If you go gung-ho in this level, you might skip some of the best stuff in the level. There's also a mean trap towards the level's end, which will test new players' combat skills, again with a sneaky side entrance to help even the odds if you're smart. Nuclear Plant is definitely a fun level and a strong follow-up. Its more open level design could confuse some players, but it's a solid outing no doubt. Toxin Refinery kicks up the difficulty and challenges the player with a number of interesting firefights. From the room stuffed full of imps, to the raised battle outside, all the way through to the level's most memorable battle, when the lights go out after picking up the blue key. There's a heap of optional secrets that will lead you to a megasphere, a rocket launcher, and even a secret exit, which is teased to the player earlier in the level. It's all very well designed. The layout of this level impresses the importance of clearing rooms, as the game forces you to backtrack heavily. Fail to clear all the monsters and you'll have a big firefight trying to get back to the level's exit. It's a nice step up in challenge for sure. There are also several inescapable toxic traps in this level, waiting to gobble up any players who aren't patient and careful when fighting around them. Toxin Refinery leaves a strong impression and is very intricately designed. It's a really fun level, but one that punishes the player hard if they get it wrong. Probably the first average level in Knee Deep in the Dead, Command Control has a lot of fun ideas, but there's nothing that overly new here or anything that memorable. There are some fun fights to be had throughout the level. The open exchanges see you fighting enemies up high and down low, which is an interesting matchup. The blue key is also hidden in a mess of imps that could cause some newer players some real trouble. Outside of these though, there's only a maze puzzle that stands out, and even this feels weak compared to what we saw in E1M2. If you really fancy testing your skills, strafe run onto the wall over the toxic pit and you can finish this level in about 25 or 30 seconds. It's really not a bad level by any stretch, but it's certainly nothing unique or special in this episode. Phobos Lab has some fun ideas, but not all of them are executed positively. The level is tightly designed, with natural choke points leading to some intense firefights. The way the level leans back on itself at various points so you can see into future areas is also a very nice touch. The opening to the level will certainly chew through your ammo, but a supplement of well placed secrets dotted around will keep the ammo flowing. The big letdown for me is the dark room right before the exit. This room feels somewhat unfair, turning the lights on and off to cause maximum frustration. With barrels littered around and shotgun guys ready to shoot, it can get very frustrating. The light amplification goggles are kind of hidden here as well, so it could be very frustrating to new players. Luckily, most of the rest of the level is stronger, in particular the area behind the yellow door, where several ambushes make for an intense firefight. It's a striking level and one that isn't afraid to experiment. This is easily one of the tightest level designs in all of Ultimate Doom, and it's a really fun level to play through. Central Processing is a large level, but it manages to tie all those pieces together into something quite fun. The room with the red key traps you inside and forces you to face off against a huge horde of enemies. The end of the level traps you in a room with a large horde of enemies whom you have to defeat. Yeah, this level has one solid idea, and it uses it, for better or worse, to leave a mark. The rest of the level is quite fun. Even the signature maze can be completely skipped if you're adventurous enough to find the secret skip. Heck, there are several secret passages that let you bypass large amounts of enemies throughout this level, so go wild finding those secrets. There are a lot of enemies on this level, and a lot of them are tucked around corners and hidden out of sight. Weaker players will be punished hugely for not proceeding with care throughout this level. The good thing about this level as well is that it gives you a lot of weapons and lets you have fun mowing down larger number of enemies. Bar the last room, this one certainly leaves a positive impression, and it's certainly a very fun experience. Computer Station takes everything Knee Deep in the Dead has been building up to and throws it all at the player. This is a strong level that challenges the player to use all their wits and skills, with monsters lurking in large numbers and sometimes out of sight. Even the opening exchange can be brutal on higher difficulties. The level contrasts some tight choke points with expansive rooms, overlooked by rooms filled with enemies. The level design really complements the experience here, allowing you to take out enemies well ahead of time and make things easier for yourself if you choose. There are a ton of optional areas that reward the curious, as well as a stash of secrets, including the outdoor area that allows you to make the end of the level that much easier, but only if you're curious enough to go exploring. This level has some great design, fun battles, and raises the intensity to a fun but exciting level. Definitely a highlight of Knee Deep in the Dead. Phobos Anomaly is okay, and that's about the best I can say for the first boss battle level in Doom. The opening with the barrels and pinkies is explosive, while the boss battle against the two barons is iconic, but the level itself falls flat outside of this. There's one secret in the level and a handful of weapons, all of which will help you with the boss battle should you need it. Before you're raised up the elevator to face the two barons, it feels like a staging area, like you're getting ready for a big battle. Once you reach the barons, it's up to you to take them out. On higher difficulties you'll be swarmed by spectres, adding spice to the battle. New players might find themselves underprepared for the tanky barons, but the room is large enough for you to move around and avoid their shots. I do find some of the level quirks here quite odd. The way that the main boss room is shaped like a star is odd, I have to say, and the fact that you can't finish the level without being torn to shreds feels somewhat cheap to me. This isn't a huge level, but it's one that ends the episode on a positive, if slightly underwhelming note. Military Base is Knee Deep in the Dead's secret level, and honestly, it's pretty great. Compared to some of the later levels in Knee Deep in the Dead, this one keeps things relatively compact, having the level encircle the opening area. This decision means it's hard to get lost, although the level does lack any spectacular landmarks, so everything can get a bit samey on the first playthrough. The opening room with the imps in the cage is fun, more so on higher difficulties where a bunch of shotgunners and zombie men will flood the area in seconds and add to the chaos. Each of the rooms around this area feels like its own self-contained puzzle box, with enemies and key doors forcing you to explore and battle. There is one particularly nasty rocket launcher trap that will likely be the downfall of many novice players. Luckily, the level offers up plenty of backtracking space and gives players plenty of chance to work in their own approach to these rooms, which I appreciate. The only downside to this level is the forced toxic dip near the level's end, a certain point of frustration if you've had many hard battles in this level, but again, if you know exactly what you're doing, you can skip right over this. Overall, I feel Knee Deep in the Dead has some of the strongest level design in the first Doom. It doesn't stray too far from the base aesthetic, and while that means a lot of metal interiors, it also means that levels don't descend into abstract messes. There's a great balance of learning and difficulty here. New players aren't thrown into the deep end as levels progressively begin stacking ideas and slowly raising the difficulty. I also feel that despite having the least number of monsters available, Knee Deep in the Dead manages to make good use of the monsters available to it, implementing them in creative and fun ways that challenge the gamer. The weakest parts of this episode come from over-experimentation and really poor ideas, like the room at the end of E1M5 where the lights flicker on and off. That really doesn't add to the difficulty, it's just annoying. E1M8 might be a boss level, but I feel it's not as satisfying an ending as some might hope. Overall, I feel that, for the most part, Knee Deep in the Dead earns its reputation as the most consistent and arguably best episode in the original Doom trilogy of episodes. Let me know what you think of Knee Deep in the Dead and its levels, which are the best for you, and which are the worst of all.